Mind programming. Website programmers, computer software developers, and smartphone application creators know exactly what the word programming means. In general, it refers to a set of instructions that guide a device, predetermine how to handle data, perform tasks, and execute a series of actions required to achieve a specific goal. Programming is the second step in creating a website, software, or application. The first phase involves designing a theoretical visualization model that includes the overall framework of the project, basic form, color identification, basic keys, transition screens, miniature codes, tools, tapes, and other components that determine the program's structure. The programming phase is the process of writing code, testing and correcting errors, and developing the source code to implement predetermined functions and expected results accurately through a series of calculations and logical processes. This is necessary because electronic devices do not have an independent mind. They carry out tasks and serve their purpose according to fixed steps identified by the programmer, without any attempt at innovation. The human mind is determined to freedom of thought and autonomy in research and investigation. However, it can also be subject to programming, although in a way that differs from the method used to program electronic devices. The ultimate goal, however, is the same: the implementation of fixed steps previously identified by the programmer. Mind programming primarily targets the subconscious, which controls a person's beliefs, orientations, and decisions. It is based on the fundamental principle of repetition. For example, a child in basic education learns that the Earth is a sphere. The teacher explains this, and the child sees images of it on the pages of geography books, on television shows, movies, and series, on newspaper pages and magazines, on street advertisements, clothing, and textbook covers. Through this repetitive programming process, the idea of the Earth being a sphere becomes entrenched as an unquestionable fact in the child's mind. Programming first requires the creation of a template of directed thought, a set of ideas, opinions, and beliefs supported by evidence called scientific, and experiences called the same, to create an acceptable model for interpreting a phenomenon. Although the first step is difficult to impose on the first generation, the next steps become easier through model frameworks for generations after the first to learn from the cradle. This way, the intellectual template becomes steady and intuitive, and the idea spreads among humans like wildfire, without the least resistance in the post. For example, there is a scientific model that explains the layers of the Earth from the crust to the core. We learn this model at a young age and repeat it over and over, teaching it to our children as an unquestionable scientific constant. The programming process does not allow us to question this model, ask for proof, or check how scientists know about it. In our minds, we believe that scientists know more than us, and that they must have dug until they reached the core, analyzed and tested these layers by direct observation, and then presented a scientific model supported by thousands of illustrations. However, the reality is that this model is not a scientific model but rather science fiction, based on nothing more than guesses. No one has drilled deep into the Earth to confirm it through observation and study. No one knows for sure what the Earth's layers are, and the deepest hole ever drilled by humans is the Kola Ultra Deep project, on which scientists from the Soviet Union worked to dig the deepest hole in the world, only 15 kilometers deep. The project began in 1970, and by 1983 they had managed to dig 12 kilometers deep. For the next 10 years, they were unable to dig more than an additional 20 centimeters. So, that is all they were able to achieve, only 12 kilometers. Despite several attempts to achieve the goal, the Kola Ultra Deep project could not go more than 12 kilometers deep, and it completely stopped in 1993, announcing the largest hole ever dug by a human being. The scientists involved in the project concluded with important findings that demolish the geological theory that the Earth's layers become less porous and more coherent as we approach the center. Instead, the Soviet scientists who worked on the project discovered by direct observation that the opposite is true, and that deep layers of the Earth were more porous, allowing water to move easily in these distant depths. Although they drilled the deepest hole in the Earth and possessed direct observations and scientific data, they humbly admitted with their results published on their official website. We realized and understood how little we knew about Earth's structure. The goal of the project was to dig 15 kilometers, but they could not exceed 12 kilometers despite all their attempts before the project stopped without reaching the target. Strangely, the Earth's atmospheric troposphere, the first layers we live within, rises to 12 kilometers. Is it a coincidence or an interesting pattern and a secret of the secrets of the number 12? The year is divided into 12 months, the hour has 12 digits, and there are 12 zodiac signs in the sky. The main component of our body is the carbon isotope known as carbon-12, which makes up 98% of our body's carbon. In Greek mythology, there were 12 gods led by Zeus, and in Roman mythology, there were also 12 gods led by Jupiter. In Hinduism, there is an auxiliary god of the creator god Brahma, known as the Dwadasha Aditya, which means 12 Aditya. The prophet Moses blew 12 horns to his people, and Jesus had 12 disciples. In Christianity, there are 12 ages, and in Shia Islam, there are also 12 imams. The Kola Ultra Deep Project's most surprising observation was that the Earth's layers are not random, but rather neatly arranged and structured with distinct layers made up of different types of rock. Despite man's attempts, we have not been able to dig deeper than 12 kilometers, which means we have not even reached halfway through the Earth's crust. This crust only represents less than 1% of the Earth's size. And if we haven't penetrated the Earth's crust, how have we managed to define the Earth's entire structure, and study it as an established scientific model? The answer lies in a mental programming process that has prevented us from questioning our assumptions, a complex programming process that supports other processes, the most significant of which is the assumption that we live on the surface of a spherical object. However, it is worth asking the question, are we truly living on a spherical surface?